Today, I want to talk about the Tuskegee experiment, which is notorious for being an unethical experiment in human history. At the expense of socially vulnerable groups, we have learned from the mistakes and established bioethics in human experiment. This presentation includes the background of the Tuskegee study of syphilis and the significance of the Tuskegee study of syphilis, and ethical and legal issues, and the impact on society and the healthcare professions, and lastly, specific examples for legal and ethical elevation and recommendations to avoid these issues. Before I get started, let's take a look at the background of this study. This study was conducted from 1932 to 1972 by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the United States Public Health Service, with 399 African American men who had syphilis and 201 control subjects without disease. The authorities persuaded the subject that they had bad blood and enticed them to participate in the experiment by convincing them free treatment. African Americans living in Macon County, Alabama, were poor tenant farmers who could not read, and they never seen a doctor their whole life. The authorities were persuaded by an U.S. health authority to participate in the experiment. However, the researchers' objective was to monitor the natural course of syphilis, and as the study unfolded, several ethical issues emerged that made the case known worldwide. Why is this experiment considered important to this day? First, it influenced the birth of bioethics and the establishment of research ethics. Second, the principle of informed consent was established. In medical treatment and research on human subjects, it is legally and ethically important that doctors and researchers must fully explain the content, and that patient and the subject must understand and then consent to it. Then what are the ethical and legal issues exposed through this study? State agencies concealed that the fact that there were observations of the natural course of syphilis and tricked citizens into engaging in experiments. And even though they were smart and outstanding researchers at the time, they did not recognize that there was a problem during the experiment and did not raise the problem. Subjects lacked well-explained consent, and by not treating syphilis patients adequately, their spouses had transmitted syphilis, their children were born with congenital syphilis. They left their families at risk. And finally, it caused ethical problems by exploiting research subjects in a vulnerable environment who did not benefit from participation in the research. Next, I will discuss how this Tuskegee study has had a social impact on healthcare professionals. First, the social impact is that it has caused many African Americans to lose faith in the authority of healthcare and public health. it became a crucial factor that the low participation rate of African Americans in clinical trials and organ donation, and the reluctance of many African Americans to even routine preventive care. The second impact on healthcare professionals is that they can request informed consent and they respect for subject privacy and they require the best possible research plan to minimize risks and maximize benefit. So, what can we do to make sure this never happens again? Researchers should require the best possible research plan to minimize risks and maximize benefit. Researchers should determine whether the research can adequately manage the risks in the pipeline in which the research is conducted. They have to study with inappropriate risk-benefit ratios are prohibited. They also have to maintain fairness in subject selection. Lastly, they do not exploit the vulnerable groups of subjects. They are easy to use. Thank you very much for your attention. It was a really good time to discuss about Tuskegee study. Thank you.